I started my career as a teacher, I think that working to scale up a direct delivery program for education, like, brings together basically everything I've ever done in my career. So
thanks for tuning in to the Affecting Our Altruism podcast. This independent podcast is about people inspired to maximize their positive impact in the world. Each of them are walking their ideals through action. Our featured guest today is Ilana Kessler, co-founder of Learning Alliance, an NGO focused on improving early grades literacy by scaling up an evidence-based intervention called structured pedagogy. Ilana started her career as an elementary school teacher, then got a master's in public policy from the Harvard Kennedy School. She's been working in global development for 13 years, focusing on leading innovation and experimentation to improve the impact, scalability, and cost-effectiveness of evidence-based programs in Africa and Asia. She's lived in Kenya, Ghana, and Tanzania. Learning Alliance is launching in Eastern Uganda this month, February 2025. Ilana and her co-founder, Sofia Martinez-Cales, founded Learning Alliance after going through the Charity Entrepreneurship Incubation Program by Ambitious Impact. It's so exciting to see this become a reality. And by way of an update, since we recorded this in October 2024, we've learned that Learning Alliance has generated far more excitement than anticipated. You'll hear in the interview that they had expected to serve 5,000 students, which is like, wow. But starting this week, we'll be serving 15,000 Ugandan children. So there you go. Well, if you'd like to hear more about Ilana's background in teaching development and AIM's Charity Entrepreneurship program, have a listen to the audio version of this podcast. The video version is a bit more cut. And if you're someone interested in maximizing your positive impact, my coaching is focused on helping people like you realize your potential. I have a couple slots available at the moment, but more about that after the interview. I think you're going to love this. Check it out. Ilana, thanks for sitting down with me for the Affecting Our Altruism podcast. Welcome to the show.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, what is Learning Alliance?
Yeah, so we were recently incubated by the Charity Entrepreneurship Program, which a lot of your viewers might know about. And it's a nonprofit that is focused on improving early grades reading outcomes in low and middle income countries. And we use an intervention that's highly evidence-based, highly cost-effective, called structured pedagogy. And I'll get into what that is in a minute, but the goal of our organization is to take what we think is quite a proven intervention and nail how to scale that very cost effectively. And so that means figuring out, like, how do you do the implementation really big without losing the quality and without having costs balloon.
Yeah. So can you tell me more about structured pedagogy? What is that?
Yeah, so it's one of the primary interventions that's recommended by a number of the big evidence reviews, like the Copenhagen Consensus, over like what really works to improve learning outcomes cost effectively and at scale. The aim is to improve the effectiveness of how teachers are teaching in a way that makes it easier and more enjoyable for them to be teachers. So, and it's typically applied to mostly literacy and to some extent numeracy as well, teaching in like 1st through 3rd grade. So the intervention contains a few components. The first one is a simple structured lesson plan that the teacher follows, paired with like training up front at the start of the program and how to use the lesson plan and how to like deploy the new methods that they might be learning and deploying in the lesson plans. And then ongoing coaching, where coaches come and they observe the teacher and they provide like feedback on their lesson and they support them and try to like encourage them and get them excited. So the coaching serves the role both of helping the teacher improve on their use of the lesson plan and their use of the new methods, and then also create some encouragement and some accountability to actually try out the method. So it increases the amount of uptake from the teachers.
Yeah. So it's not just one thing that's being done, but it's just that right brew, that right combination of things, interventions.
Yeah, exactly. and the idea is to keep all of them pretty simple. So I brought a little show and tell here. Okay. So this is one of the lesson plans we're using. So this would be a teacher's daily lesson plan. We're using phonics, which is like sort of the evidence-based way to teach reading. Phonics is like learning the sounds that go into reading words, even words that you're unfamiliar with. And so it can be used in English and it can be used in most alphabetic languages. The idea of this lesson plan is, so like this day the teacher would be teaching the sound ch, ch, and there's a set of simple activities that the teacher follows. They're participatory, and there's an opportunity for kids to actually try out reading the sound and then like pairing that sound with other parts of the word. And as they're actually doing it, then there's opportunities to like hear, okay, great job, you did it right, or actually you did that wrong, and so here's how to do it right. And this differs a lot from what you would typically see in a classroom. So like as we were preparing to sort of launch this program, we went to like probably I think 16 different schools in Uganda to see sort of what's happening now in classrooms. And what we saw was like a lot of teachers who are present in classrooms, are trying, have gigantic classes. So the average class size is like 80 kids in a classroom. But the method of teaching is typically sort of like a say and repeat. So the teacher will like write a bunch of words on the board, and then they'll say the words, and then the kids will repeat the words. So the kids aren't actually going through the process of like knowing how do I actually decode this word, what sounds do these letters make. They're just sort of repeating it. And so you see very, very low learning outcomes from this learning approach. And it's very proven like what actually works. And in a classroom where people are teaching phonics and where it's participatory and where like kids have the opportunity to actually practice reading, most kids will learn to read over the course of a few years. And so we think that by providing these lesson plans and getting teachers to like know how to use them and want to use them, we can get just like a vastly larger number of kids reading.
Wow. So some people have taught English and taught reading, but I don't know if many have taught so at such a scale as this. Can you talk about the size of the program and the pilot, and also like what it's what's the overall audience that it's serving?
Right. So for this year, we're about to launch our pilot. So we'll be launching the pilot in January 2025 for 1 year. So a couple months ago, we hired 5 teacher coaches. They're all Ugandan experienced teachers. Many of them have served in as teacher coaches in other programs in the past. So we think we got this like really stellar set of teacher coaches. We're very excited to work with them. And so they're going to work with us in our pilot. And so this year, we think we're likely to work with about 50 schools and likely somewhere in the vicinity of like 5,000 kids. We're going to be working in a district in Eastern Uganda. We'll have sort of a mix of government schools and low-cost private schools. We'll choose some schools that are in towns, some schools that are in rural areas. So in all cases, these challenges of quality and class size and sort of very low resource access are there. And we're sort of purposely starting with kind of a bunch of different types of schools, all of which sort of face these struggles, because we want to get a feel for where this program works easily and in what cases where it might be a little harder to get teacher uptake, for example. And we'll be working with 1st through 3rd grade teachers. Right now our coaches are in training in the program. We'll be rolling out in January. We'll be doing trainings for teachers, and that's sort of typically when teachers come together for professional development trainings. And then starting from February is when the new school year starts with children. So the teachers will be starting to run the program then, and then our coaches will from there be out in the schools providing that sort of supervision and feedback.
Yeah, wow, exciting. Right now, so the coaches are in training at the time of recording. What was it like to find them, and how did you get to know them?
Yeah, so...
Or your co-founder, whoever it was.
Oh yeah, so my co-founder Sophia, she's based in Kampala. So she and I worked together to bring in a large number of coaching applicants. I'm really passionate about hiring for the sort of frontline delivery roles, which in the case of our program is teacher coaches. I think that the quality of staff that you bring in matters tremendously in terms of the quality of the program that you get from it. And so we have sort of overinvested this year in our teacher coach recruitment process for two reasons. First of all, because we think the first year is always challenging. We want teacher coaches who can like really help us figure out the program model. I guess three reasons. So that's one. The second is that we think that these coaches have like really high potential to, as we grow the program. So we're probably about 5,000 kids this year, but the hope is to grow a lot from there. And one way we grow is that this year's teacher coaches are able to sort of help provide leadership to the program in new ways in the future years as we hire on additional coaches in the future. So that's the second one. And then the third one is that we really wanted to better understand the hiring market, like who's out there. So we wanted to see a lot of candidates. We wanted to try out a lot of different types of hiring exercises. And so in some ways we were like really over-investing for our own purposes, because in trying to get a highly scalable model, we need a lot of information about how to design a teacher coach hiring process and then a teacher coach training process that we can do at scale cheaply while getting really fantastic people and really setting them up for success. And so what we did this year is not the process we'd scale, but it allowed us to, we had 200 applicants, and then we learned things like if we advertise this online, will people apply? If we have an application through Google Forms, do people like have the ability to fill out those? Like, do people have that sort of computer access? The answer seemed to be yes. We got an enormous number of applicants. Everybody basically was able to fill out the online forms, sometimes on phones, sometimes on computers. We had like a large percent of the applicants we invited to take like an online test of their skills. And then we invited the top 30 of those to come to in-person interviews. And then
30 in-person interviews.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Oh my gosh.
we bussed in people from all over Uganda to interviews in Kampala over the course of a week. And we had them all teach a sample lesson. And then we had them all, they did an interview with like a role play where they role played the activity of being a coach, and they answered questions about like what would their judgment be as a coach. And so we were able to use that both to get really phenomenal coaches, which we're so excited to have them as part of our team, and also just to understand what types of questions are useful and what types of questions are not useful, and those will drop out of our interview process. And then we'll use all of this to create a much more streamlined approach, so that in the future, if we want to hire 100 coaches in a year, or 200 or 300 coaches in a year, we can take the parts of this that worked and really streamline it.
Wow, Ilana, that is like, so you've built up so many bones to something that has a big capacity to be enormous. Were there any candidates who just were like, just floored you, like just really impressed? And if you have any like little anecdotes from that?
Oh gosh. Yeah, we had a chance to hire all 5 of them. And there were some other fantastic candidates who, we have more fantastic candidates than we had roles this year. So we hope we might get a chance to bring those people on in the future.
Hope so, yeah.
Someone brought her child to the interview because I think her childcare situation didn't work out. And so one thing I was floored by was other people basically just sort of like, without really saying anything, just like sort of took, they're competing for jobs, right? But they just sort of like took her child, and while she was doing her sample lesson, they held on to her child. And then, when she was trying to focus on the interview, they sort of like helped her out. And like people sort of jumped up to like provide each other advice on how they could sort of improve their sample lessons. And it was very clear that everyone's a teacher.
And professional.
Professional, but also like, I think like people were teachers at heart, and like everybody was sort of eager to help each other in a particularly teacherly way, which I was charmed by. And everybody brought their own energizers. Like teachers all have their own like favorite sort of like fun song that gets everybody energetic or fun. A lot of these people have taught 6 or 7-year-olds. So we're used to thinking about these programs as like, what do we see in a spreadsheet? What do we see in a strategy document? But you have to remember, with a program like this, we're working with classrooms of young kids, and sometimes it's just about having fun.
Yeah, that's great. That's not a typical like criterion or a consideration when I think about global development or health and well-being. What a fun, what an engaging, what a room that must have been in to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we packed things pretty tight. Everybody got like a 10-minute lesson to teach. And yeah, it was. I think it was probably a little bit high stress for them. We were trying to make everyone comfortable, but of course interviews are always stressful.
Yeah.
But just seeing them sort of each person get up and teach a different letter sound, and then the rest of the classroom was sort of simultaneously doing the coaching activity of sort of taking notes about suggestions they had for how the teacher could improve, so that we could assess their ability, like to do that coaching activity of making recommendations to the teacher. And at the same time, we asked them to role play being a class of 7-year-olds. So they,
really?
seeing a set of adults sit around a table at an interview, pretending to be sort of 7-year-olds who might be a little distracted or might be eager to participate, I think was its own funny interview activity.
That would be a really great little thing to fly on the wall for that moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone is wearing a different kind of mask or hat in this moment, and this sounds like there's a lot of optimism there too about what could be resulted from this kind of in this collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about it like, I'm talking about how it's fun and it's silly and like you want the classroom to feel warm for young kids, but also you want to be serious about like implementing phonics and teaching really effectively and getting teachers on board with taking up new teaching practices, which is hard because in some cases, somebody's been teaching one way for 10 years and you come in with sort of the structured lesson plan and you're asking them to like make a big change. And so interestingly, as we talk to different people who've run programs like this and like all over the world, and we talked to, I think, some of the highest performing programs and the leaders of those programs, we said, we tried to understand, both looking at like the evidence base about studies that have been done about the most effective programs, but also talking to people who run these. And it does seem like a big part of the secret sauce is the building of trust between the coach and the teacher. So you find a lot of teachers who are like, I don't know about this new method, maybe it's for me, maybe it's not for me, I don't know if it'll work. You find teachers who are afraid to have like 80 kids or 100 kids in a classroom do something participatory, because they're worried it's going to get chaotic or out of control. But they're willing to try it because the coach builds a relationship with them. So they're like, I don't know if this is going to work, but I like you, I trust you, and so I'm going to try it for you.
Yeah.
And then the second thing people said is that teachers continue doing structured pedagogy and they continue investing in it when they start to see the actual results improve. So the most effective programs are the ones that like provide teachers with an opportunity to see, potentially through providing them with data on some of their students' performance, or just, even just like tracking a few kids in their classroom who they can see at the start, they know can't read, they know like aren't making a lot of progress, and then when they go through this program and they start implementing it, they start to see, like it's not just like, the top 10% of my students who can learn. Actually, all of my children are going to learn to read. Like every kid in my class is going to learn to read.
Very cool. Yeah, there's that. It's not just the elites, the top ones. And when you provide lesson plans that are accessible, it's everyone can be going in the same boat, rowing in the same direction.
Yeah.
And improving. Wow, very cool. Can you remind me? So the pilot begins in this coming January, and classes in session from February. What is the duration of the pilot itself?
So we're aiming to do a baseline assessment at the start of the school year, and then a midline assessment, somewhere halfway through the school year to make sure that students are progressing, and we'll be doing all sorts of sort of smaller scale M&E throughout to make sure that teachers are actually using the lesson plans, teachers are attending the training, that kind of thing. And then we'll do an end-line assessment at the very end of the school year to sort of see the total growth.
Is that in the fall?
So that would be November, December, something like that. So I guess a few things. One is that the total length of time it takes to learn to read is more than one school year.
Yeah.
Even if you have like a very effective school, typically you think of it being a 2 or 3 year program. And so we're not expecting to see kids get from 0 to like fluent readers in 1 year. But we're expecting to see a fair amount of growth. And I think that if we do see that, the hope would be that if it's pretty clear from the midline, for example, that things are going great, then we can start to gear up to move to greater scale, even like for the 2026 school year. If we encounter like significant challenges that we're not anticipating, then I think we might move a little more slowly. We might try to solve for some of those challenges and try to maybe repeat in 2026 that sort of same scale.
I see. Yeah, so there's different different contingencies. So best case scenario, mediumist case scenario, mediumist, and then like maybe zero effect, which would be a pretty low. Right. I don't think there'll be low zero results. It sounds like you'll have designed something really cool that'll really change children's lives.
Yeah, so I think it's very
at least 5,000 children. I don't think a lot of people could say that.
So I think it's very likely that things are going to go pretty well, and then also that we're going to encounter a set of challenges, and that we want to have some time to improve on the quality of the program as we go iteratively. So we might run A/B tests. One thing I should say is that people often talk about the idea of not reinventing the wheel, and so we really wanted to sort of put our money where our mouth was there. So we didn't create our own curriculum. Phonics is very well established. There's lots of fantastic phonics programs out there.
You ever tried Jolly Phonics?
Okay, so we're using this program based on Jolly Phonics.
Oh, of course. Jolly Phonics is what's up.
So we found another NGO that's operating in northern Uganda, a different region from where we'll be operating, in about 200 schools, using a program. So the organization is called Read for Life. They're fantastic. Your viewers can go look them up if you want. And so they've already taken Jolly Phonics and sort of turned it into a Uganda-specific phonics program. So we found Read for Life had this program already. So this actually was from the Read for Life program. And so we partnered with them to use their curriculum. So each of the teachers is going to get a copy of this teacher guide. And then they've been helping to train our coaches. But I think that sort of what distinguishes us from them, so we are like super grateful for the work they did to localize this curriculum, and I think they're running a fantastic program. Their goal is really to sort of deliver a lot of impact for the schools that they're working around in Gulu in the north of Uganda. Our goal is to start from a curriculum like that, and we Learning Alliance, our goal is to build for extreme scalability and extreme cost effectiveness. So a lot of our focus, we don't want it to be on generating the curriculum, we want it to be on generating the scaling model. So questions like, how do we get the teacher coaches to schools as often as possible without spending too much money on transport, which can rapidly drive up unit costs and can make it hard to be cost effective. So a lot of our focus is going to be things like, how frequently do you have to have trainings? Do the trainings need to be in a central area where it might cost a lot to bring teachers together? Or can the trainings happen after school, like in teacher classrooms, and so the teachers can just stay in their own school or just go to the next school over, so you save on transport costs? And so the nuts and bolts of building a really cost-effective program, some of them are running these sort of narrow A/B tests on questions like, where should we locate our trainings, and should we bring a lot of teachers together, or should we just like do them after school and have our coaches go out to them?
Oh my goodness, I feel like you can spend your whole year just like cutting up different segments and looking at data. In your N, is it fair to call it N? Like it's kind of a N equals 5,000. Like, so is that right? Appropriate to call it N?
Roughly.
Yeah, the sample size is such that you could probably do some creative slicing of that. Yeah,
so we're unlikely to test every child within the program. We'll test outcomes for a sample of them. But some of the outcomes we're going to be looking at are not purely learning outcomes. They're sort of along our theory of change. A lot of what we want to do right now is really test for questions like, okay, so assuming that if the curriculum is delivered really well, that children will learn, there's a bunch of things that have to happen in order to get the curriculum delivered well. So the other, like if you look at sort of across our theory of change, we have to sort of physically get the books to teachers. I think we're going to nail that one in our first year, certainly.
Been done before.
There can be logistics challenges of that kind of thing at very large scale, but if we're going to be in 50 schools, we're going to get that run right. But then, like, do teachers come to your training? So I think it's a pretty common challenge that not that many teachers show up. So we're going to be really investing in building relationships with the district, building relationships with head teachers at each school to make sure that everybody's really committed to getting the teachers to the training, that we schedule the trainings at appropriate times, and that teachers understand why they're supposed to show up. So that's like the teacher attendance data. Then there's the data on how often does each coach get to do an observation of each teacher, and then the data that the coach will collect during their observation is partly about figuring out what feedback they should give to the teacher in order to improve, but then also that'll act as data for us as an organization about what's working and what's not. And what I expect to see is that some schools and some teachers will do a particularly good job right away, and then some will see the program isn't being implemented as much, or the teachers aren't showing up. And I think that a lot of our innovation this year is going to be around how do we sort of segment those sort of, it's sort of like market segmentation, but basically how do we understand each sort of set of teachers and students who are being successful and who aren't being successful in the program, and how do we kind of maximize our impact by driving up the numbers of them who are sort of in those success categories.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question here?
Yeah.
I'm curious if that kind of like vision is being shared, and if that's important, that the vision of like, wow, we could change Uganda. Is that kind of like high level vision shared with coaches in the program?
Well, for coaches certainly,
Will
and then I think the big question is how do we get individual teachers excited about what they'll be doing? Is it about like thinking about how can you change the future of Uganda? Is it about thinking about how my classroom will be easier and more fun? Is it about thinking about specific individual kids that they wish they could be more effective with? Is it about thinking about their own family members and the type of education that they think their own child deserves to have, and sort of then thinking beyond that? And then, there are other things too, like if, all of us have jobs, and as a person in a job who reports to someone, like, is the head teacher of your school, who's your boss if you're a teacher, like, are they telling you this matters? And so I think, like, looking at all those different pieces, I think that, like, what narrative we give to people, what incentives we give that sort of set people up, not monetary incentives necessarily, but like how we get people feeling excited about it. I do think that's a huge part, and a question of how do you do that in a way that's resonant with people, and that's something we're working with our coaches to kind of design. I think that our coaches are particularly well situated to say, like, what would get me excited? What would get the teachers I've taught with excited?
I'm so happy for these coaches, and I'm so excited for that. What could emerge from like this core work? That's really cool. There for their community and for their country. Cool. I have a question about Uganda, and something about structured pedagogy, materials, coaching, training. Are there like external factors to classroom quality that could impact the success of Learning Alliance? One thing that comes to mind is like the gender disparity between girls and boys. Maybe some people have to go take care of agricultural work, labor, and maybe other sort of health-related things. I don't know how it might be specific to this particular 5,000 student population. But yeah, what are some like circumstantial things in Uganda that you're keeping in mind as?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think everything you named is an example of something that can be a barrier to learning. So definitely the area where we're launching is an area with a lot of agricultural activity. So at certain times of year, sometimes students' parents sort of call them back to the farm to kind of help the family with that. I do think that one thing that happens is that if parents perceive school as very valuable, both in terms of seeing school as leading to like the potential for jobs or the potential for a better life, but also in terms of believing that children are actually learning in the school. So if they think that learning is really happening, versus just, some people just sort of think of it as like childcare. And so the quality of what's going on in the school does matter.
Yeah. Why don't we turn to the evidence base that Learning Alliance was founded upon? Can you talk about that for a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if your viewers are interested in the details, I think you're going to add the evidence review we did into the show notes, and I'm sure that will do a much better job of citing specific studies and citing specific numbers than I'll do here. But generally, like the best structured pedagogy programs are phenomenally cost effective. For example, like the Copenhagen Consensus put out an estimate that sort of drawing together a number of different numbers and sort of speculating a little bit that it could have like a 65 to 1 cost benefit ratio. Some of the top performing programs in structured pedagogy might charge like, it would cost maybe $15 per student per year, and then you see like a standard deviation of increase in learning that year, which sort of a hard to understand metric that's used in education, but essentially it means that like children learn a lot, like that's a massive effect. But you don't see it for every program, right? So and if you look at the spread across different programs, you see anywhere from like slight negative effect of a program up to like 0.7 standard deviations in a year of the program or more. So you see this very large spread. And the reason for that, I think, to me, I think a lot of it is about quality and a lot of it is about dosage. So we're wanting to ensure that we like really implement a quality curriculum. We really nail the quality of the quality of the coaching itself, and then we nail the like boring implementation details, like actually making sure that the coaches get to the schools and the teachers show up to the training, and if the teacher was absent, they get a follow-up to make sure that they actually show up. But the programs that really nail the quality achieve this phenomenal cost effectiveness. And now I know that some of your viewers may be wondering about sort of, okay, I buy the idea that you can increase learning levels a lot through a program like this, but what does that mean? Does it matter if you increase learning? How does that affect a child's like lifelong outcomes? And I believe that it's likely to be phenomenally cost effective. There's also some data on that, sort of like how much impact being able to like learning to read or increasing learning levels by a year or 2 years of schooling can affect lifelong earnings and other sort of measures of well-being. And the data is hard to get because you're talking about, we're doing a reading intervention in 1st through 3rd grade, and then you're talking about what's someone's life outcome 20, 30 years later. Right. So there's a limited set of data on this, but if you go to, I think the primary modeling of this is by Hanushek. You can read through the different evidence we cite around that, but I think basically, to me, it makes a lot of sense that the learning that you do, like if you can learn to read versus not learn to read, and we can do that for, $15 a year for 2 or 3 years. So if you imagine you spend $50 on making sure that a kid actually learns to read, the lifelong difference in the likelihood that you're going to go on to secondary or that you're going to be able to do well in your classes, maybe go on to university, much higher likelihood that you can go and get a job if you can read versus can't read. And even if you then don't go on and get a job, if you think about things that people do in like a rural community, if you're farming and you go to buy a farm input, being able to read the back of the farm input so that you can use it properly. Yeah. If you take your child to the doctor and they prescribe a medicine, being able to read the back of the medicine box so you like use the dosage properly. The difference in being able to read and not read, if you can buy that for $50 per kid, there's just like the potential for absolutely phenomenal cost effectiveness from that.
You really don't have to use too much stretching of the imagination
Exactly.
and bending reality to kind of understand the value of literacy in this world. To think about travel, like which terminal do I go to? How do I book a flight ticket, and how do I like live and visit that place with a stop sign? What does the stop sign tell me to do? So like that, but it's not nothing, right? The evidence base exists between literacy and life outcomes, and is the Learning Alliance kind of keep its theory of change inclusive of the entire picture? Does that Copenhagen Consensus number kind of include all those assumptions about lifetime upside benefits?
So I don't know the details of how they came to that number. I think for us, our theory of change does include the sort of good outcomes that can come from being able to read, but what we would actually want to measure, we want to focus on what's practical to measure, which is what we're actually doing, which is, are we delivering what we say we're going to deliver? Are the teachers taking it up and doing it well? And then are kids learning to read? So we're going to be using an assessment called the EGRA, the Early Grades Reading Assessment, which is an internationally benchmarked assessment that was developed by RTI, and it's used in a lot of different similar types of interventions. And so we're happy that that's going to give us easy to use data and easier to understand than standard deviations. We can also say things like the number of words that a child can read per minute is this, so that's a lot easier to sort of make meaning of.
Yeah.
And then it'll be benchmarked across like what lots of different programs do, so we'll be able to see how we're doing compared to other programs running similar types of interventions.
My goodness, what a oh, good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck, like the moment you're going to be waiting for those results to come in to see like those early assessments, see where you're starting from, and then the midpoint of the year to seeing like what may need to change, and then at the end of the year what the pilot means, and to the people of Uganda. Like I'm so excited to see some upside, some change. I wonder if we can talk about funding for a bit, or like things that might support the Learning Alliance. Are there any like hires that you're looking to make in the near future, either in the field or outside the field?
Yeah, so I don't know exactly when this conversation is going to post. As of like today, right now, I'm very soon to post a role for a program associate who would be someone who's an experienced teacher who wants to help us maximize the educational impact of our program. So it's going to be a combination of sort of observing the teacher coaches and providing suggestions on how to sort of keep improving that curriculum and keep improving how we support our coaches, and then also potentially running some trials on different ways we might improve the program and A/B tests and that sort of thing to see like what program design we want to ultimately have. So we're going to post that role pretty soon.
Cool. How important is the Ugandan context for that associate?
So the person will be based in Eastern Uganda, and I think understanding the context is going to be really critical. They're going to spend like multiple days every week in schools observing. We'd love to hire a Ugandan staff member for that. We are opening it to global professionals from anywhere, but if the person is not Ugandan, then we expect that they're going to be spending a lot of time working very closely with all of our staff members there, who I think, every time we get our teacher coaches together at a staff meeting, I learned so much from them about program design. And like just this morning I had a conversation with one of our coaches, Raymond, who was sharing his thoughts about sort of how we can optimize the program and how we can get teachers excited about it and make it feel like it's their program. So I think that the program design, incorporating the perspectives of people who like actually understand it and understand the context, is absolutely critical. And so we're really keen on all of our teacher coaches and any like Ugandan staff members who come into our team, like really driving the program design and really driving it through their understanding of local context.
Wonderful. So that's the staff. It's a key staff member to help develop the program, to keep to like look at the numbers, look at the stats, and also like how the outcomes represented on the ground. And that sounds like a really important hire. Good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you.
As far as fundraising and money, would you like to talk about that?
Sure. So we project at current burn rate to run out of cash around May 2025, give or take. I think that we're in a pretty good position to get follow-on funding all the way through to the end of our pilot. That said, if we want to continue the program beyond that, if we want to grow the program beyond that, we need to start planning for that sooner. We can't just decide at the end of the pilot if we want to continue the next year, especially if we want to scale up more and hire more coaches, because we need time to find them and train them. So I think if anybody's excited about what I'm talking about and wants to help commit funding to 2026 or beyond, or think about scaling beyond our current scale, I'd love to talk to anybody who wants to talk about that. I think that the total year's pilot is going to end up running about $200,000, and that's all in. That's including like the cost to run the program for 50 schools, but also the cost to like all of our staff, all of our overheads, everything.
And as you alluded to before, like literally providing literacy to a child for that at that cost price point is itself so meaningful. Like even if you didn't think too much about the long-term future of how a person grows up and uses those literacy skills, it's a really meaningful contribution to somebody's life, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that, I'm hoping that we can narrow our, right now a lot of it's estimates, and I'm hoping that, some months from now, it's not going to be estimates, I can actually give you a number, but I'm excited to be able to say something like, for $30 over the course of 2 years, you can buy like a child's like long-term reading future. And for a bigger amount, you can do that for a lot of children and give like every single one of them the ability to read. And also, we haven't talked about how much this empowers teachers to feel like they can actually sort of make the difference in their classroom that they want to make. But it's, it's like really exciting. As somebody who's been a teacher, I know you've been a teacher too, like you want to feel like you can actually make that difference. And when you're feeling stuck with the methods and tools that you currently have, it's really frustrating. Yeah. And I think that I'm hoping that teachers are also going to feel really excited once they see the potential of this kind of program for them. And that also is an exciting thing.
It sounds like the cost we're talking about is like you can buy a book for that much money. You can literally buy a book from the local bookstore in a developed country. Imagine if that was instead somebody's lifetime ability to read.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild that kind of when you think seriously about cost effectiveness and impartiality, like yes, that person deserved to learn how to read. Much more than I deserve to read a fantasy novel that I find, or 2 fantasy novels, God forbid, off the shelf. It's incredible work you're doing, Ilana, and I'm so glad that there are people like you out there, founding organizations bravely doing something that should work, but you don't know until you do it.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really excited, and we're excited to see what challenges the new year brings and then see how we can tackle them and create a lot of impact.
Yeah. Are you looking forward to visiting Uganda in the next little bit?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I will be up there for hopefully almost a month in January as things are rolling out. Once the coaches finish their training, I'm really excited to just see the program starting to run.
What's Uganda like? What's it like in January? Do you know? Is it cold? No, it's the southern hemisphere.
It's right by the equator.
Okay.
I'm not sure the exact season that... I think that's like sort of between the rainy seasons, if I'm right. I used to live in Kenya very close to the border with Uganda, so assuming the seasons are similar, that's kind of between the 2 rainy seasons.
Okay. What's your favorite food from Uganda?
Maybe matoke. It's like
What's that?
It's a plantain that's sort of like mashed up, and it's kind of like mashed potatoes. It's good.
Oh, you can turn a plantain into a potato dish.
It's not sweet.
Oh, it's not sweet.
Yeah.
So
it's like a savory plantain.
Yeah, savory plantain. And how do they like season it? Was it spicy a little bit?
No, it's like like mashed potatoes. It's like can be bland by itself, but then people will add things like I like groundnut soup, so it's like a peanut flavored soup, and people will often put that with matoke or with rice.
Matoke. What's
matoke?
That's the plantain thing.
That's the plantain thing.
Oh, okay. Can you tell where this interview is taking place at dinner time? Yeah. Well, Ilana, I really appreciate you sitting down with me, as I said. And one more question is like, how if people hear this, they want to like get the latest, they want to keep posted. You have a website with an email update newsletter, right?
So if you want to keep up with us, I recommend following us on LinkedIn, and then I recommend going to our website where you can sign up for a newsletter.
Okay, that's amazing. I think I'm out of questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good luck to Learning Alliance. Good luck to all you teachers, education advocates, and of course you students in Eastern Uganda. All the best. Follow Learning Alliance through their newsletter, which you can sign up for on our website, learningalliance.net, as well as via LinkedIn. Please let them know that the Affecting Our Altruism podcast sent you. As of mid-December 2024, Learning Alliance is still accepting applications for a learning innovation or program associate who has experience teaching, to be working mostly in Jinja or Iganga. This person will help the team deliver and fine-tune the program model It's a really important role. So if you're interested or you know somebody who might be a good fit, see more again on LinkedIn. If you are interested in donating to Learning Alliance, here's what your money can make happen. $100 funds all the materials for one classroom to run the program for years. $1,000 funds a whole school to participate in the program for a year. $6,000 funds a coach to deliver training and classroom support for 10 schools and 2,000 children per year. So I hope these numbers help you understand what I mean when I say the word impact. Like, what can $6,000 do in a school in the developed world? Like, provide the salary for one teacher for a few weeks? And even with an effective altruism, this could be massive. GiveWell's top charities are about 8x the benefit of direct cash transfers. Learning Alliance is shooting for 35x. So even if they're close to right, this could be the most effective donation you'll ever make. Yeah, so donate using the website and click on the donate button to do that. It's deductible in the US. Now, my hope is that you hear stories like Ilana's and feel that you can learn from examples like this one and do something that may help millions as well. For those of you who are inspired and want some help navigating the wide range of ways to have a positive effect like this, let's talk. As a coach, I help individuals translate good intentions into effects felt in the real world. Trying to solve the world's problems alone, it just doesn't work. If you know you have untapped potential for good, talk to me. My website, elliottbillingsley.com, has more about my coaching and a link to my calendar where you can book time for a free discovery session. Well, that's enough from me. Thank you so much for listening. Now, go change the world.